Welcome to the podcast. My name is Chris William. This is Limitless, and my ambition is to teach others of the importance of playing to their strengths and help them achieve success by their definition. There we go. Good. Appropriately dressed. I appreciate you, Beck. I appreciate you. I didn't expect anything less, to be honest.
No, well, that's right.
Oh, I apologise. I'm late. For those listening, I'm late. Entirely my fault. You know I'm under the pump when I haven't tried to sell anything in the morning. I still haven't jumped on Instagram yet and tried to sell a thing. That is that is very out of character for me. So I've got a good reason, I promise you.
Yeah.
How are you this fine Monday morning, Miss Beck?
Yeah, good. Done my steps already, so yeah.
So you sound very different to the way I sound after I've done my steps. I do not sound chirpy. Because 10,000, have you done the entire 10,000? Is that what you're doing, or is that what you've already done?
No, I've done 8,000.
Yeah, any more steps than 4,000 for me, and that's well above my daily average, if I'm absolutely honest. I've already started to chat. I'm definitely not going to sound as chirpy as you proceeding 4,000. I take my hat off to you, Beck. You obviously you obviously have better skins than I do, because I'm at the point now. I will not do cardio. I've made the mistake too many times. I will not do cardio without skins. And if anyone asks me to do anything, that's the first question I ask: how much walking is involved? Because that's going to be related to the underwear I wear.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely honest. Plan of attack for today. Well, sorry. First and foremost, how would you like me to introduce you, Beck? We didn't discuss this.
I don't know. You can.
What title would you like? What title would you like, Beck?
Oh, I don't mind. Whatever you got planned.
Introducing Beck. Now, Beck would describe herself as no one special. And we actually had this conversation the other day, and you actually debated as to whether this was actually a conversation worth having, like our chat right now. But I would describe Beck as someone that is far more inspirational than she gives herself credit. I would describe Beck as someone that doesn't really realize how impressive what she's accomplished is. And I describe you as someone that's done some pretty exceptional things. And you're going to be the last to believe it, but I promise you, preceding this chat, given the impact I expected to have on so many that were in a similar circumstance to you to begin with, at least. And obviously, what you're willing, the fact that you're willing to be honest about the things we're going to talk about today, that's not common. You are an exceptional individual. That is how I would describe you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So it's probably best I introduce you as opposed to letting you introduce yourself, because that would have been, no one would have kept listening after that. You would have gone, hey, I'm Beck. I'm nothing special.
Yeah.
Lost the audience, but that is certainly not the case. So I'll let you do the honors. So how much, because fitness is an escape for you. So what we're going to talk about is more or less mental health, depression, fitness, coping mechanisms. That's the plan of attack. So for the sake of context, how heavy were you at your heaviest, Beck?
So I got up to 118 kilos.
And you're not 6'5".
No, I'm 5'4". So if you can picture like Humpty Dumpty, that was me.
Except not bald. See, that's
no, not bald.
Hairline, there'd be an uncanny resemblance between those two.
Yeah.
But that is not healthy. That is most certainly not. And you attribute being at that weight. Well, see, there's so many factors, obviously, but at that weight, do you believe that it was depression that resulted in weight gain to the degree that, or you gaining weight to the degree you did? Or do you believe that it was more or less the weight gain that then exacerbated your issues regarding depression? Let's talk mental health. How long have you struggled with depression for? And do you attribute the weight you were, or do you attribute mental health to the weight you gained?
Okay, so I actually started my depression when I was nearly 15. An incident happened to me when I was a teenager. I got pretty badly bashed up, and I had my jaw fractured. Some pretty nasty stuff happened to me. So that actually triggered my depression. I kind of kept on top of it because mum and dad, they would make sure that I was still doing stuff and everything. And then when I moved out of home, I didn't have them to do that for me anymore. So I think
keep you distracted, hold you accountable to a degree.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I ended up not having people there to go, Beck, come on, you got to stop eating to make yourself feel better. And I just did it, and I just kept going and going and going.
15, you weren't overweight. So that wasn't the reason. Okay, right, okay.
Yep.
So the actual incident itself, that was unrelated to your weight, but your coping mechanism was more or less food.
Food, yeah.
Is it because it made you feel good? Is that, or it was in that moment you were distracting yourself? Is that?
I'm not sure. Like, it does make me feel good, like eating, especially stuff that I'm not supposed to be eating.
Sugar, serotonin. Serotonin is the feel good hormone, and sugar results in the secretion of serotonin. So that is why a lot of people do, and obviously, like it's not a prolonged feeling. You're only really feeling good proximal to obviously having eaten that, and that's why people tend to have trouble stopping once they again, like feel the way they do when they do snack and when they do eat things that they probably shouldn't in as well.
Well, it ended up being a vicious circle because I would eat it and I'd feel good while I ate it. And then as soon as I finished, I was like, why? Why did you do that?
Yeah, that's the worst mindset to have, because that is, as you said, it's a vicious cycle. And then did you believe, like regarding like your mental health and obviously like the depression you were experiencing, did that adversely affect how inclined you were to make friends? Did it adversely affect your confidence? Did it adversely affect a lot of other things as well? And do you think that your coping mechanisms, obviously you chose to eat, do you think that exacerbated the issues regarding your confidence, regarding your sense of self-worth, all that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, 100%.
I got you. And you weren't, like, your parents didn't advise you to deal with it. Is that what your parents did? They more or less advised you to deal with it differently? That's why they sort of encouraged you to do things, like it more or less did things to keep you busy. But as soon as they weren't there, that's when there was no one to stop you eating. So like those around you understood that eating was not a viable coping mechanism. But obviously you effectively forgot. And it was, I guess it's one of the easier coping mechanisms, isn't it? It's very accessible.
Yeah.
You can
That's right.
Really require any effort, whereas everything else, as far as like physical exercise goes, as far as even just getting out of the house to mingle, requires far more effort than eating does. I wonder if that's the reason as to why you're inclined to do it.
Yeah, maybe. Well, well, I never had a weight problem when I was living at home because Mum used to prepare all my meals for me and on me. And then when I got out, I was like, holy shit, I can order pizza at 11 o'clock at night and nobody's going to tell me that I can't do that. And
what are you going to do now, Mum? Huh?
Yep.
It's like getting your license, being able to drive to McDonald's, whatever you want. It's again, like it feels at the time, it feels like a privilege. Really, if you're not careful, it will be a curse. Especially, it's a coping mechanism, 100%.
Yeah.
So 100. How long did it take you from 15? How long did it take you to weigh in at 118? And was it a progressive thing, and did you realize at the time, like how long did it take you to realize, hang on a minute, like this is what I'm actually using to deal with my depression, deal with my stress. Maybe I should actually wean this back. Like what was there a point in time you went, holy crap, like this is I'm too heavy, this is too much?
Yep. So after I had my second child, that happened. Right. So that's a long time of dealing with, like over 10 years. Right. And then I looked in the mirror and I just hated who I seen.
And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back to a degree, that moment there.
Yeah. So it was also like I was having a fair few health problems. Like I had sleep apnea, irritable bowel. I had headaches all the time, just mood swings. And then I actually had a sleep study done because I was like always waking up tired and I ended up stopped breathing for 1 minute and 13 seconds in my sleep study. And the doctor was like, whoa, this is not good. If you don't take control of this, you are going to die. So he actually, he got me fitted for a CPAP machine. And then that's when I was like, nah, I'm not having a bar of this.
It's too much. Exactly right. Well, what is the cost? So that was, how old were you there, out of curiosity?
27.
That's earlier than I thought. Wow. Okay. So between pretty much like a 12 year, so over the 12 years, because you didn't have a weight problem to begin with, how much weight did you gain from 15 until, like, what were you at 15?
I was only like 65 or something.
So you literally gained 60 kilo over the space of effectively 12 years, which doesn't really, like, that's, when you think about it, it's only really 5 kilo a year, but it does add up. It does compound. Yeah. And you were like for like the space of those 12 years, were you always feeling guilty every time you ate? Like, were you of the understanding it still wasn't? Yeah, okay, right. So it wasn't just when you were heavy doing that. You knew it wasn't viable even when you weren't that heavy. How interesting. And no one advised, like obviously even like those around you that may not necessarily have been close to you, but no one said, hang on a minute, like, hey, something's obviously wrong here, or hang on a minute, like she's gaining a bit of weight. Should probably make apparent to her that we've actually noticed that she's gained a bit of weight. Because as soon as you're at 5'4", if you're above 80 kilo, you're pretty, like, you can see that there's some weight there that probably shouldn't be there.
Yep, 100%.
Not probably shouldn't be there, but there's some weight there that could definitely, it would benefit you losing some weight at that height and at that weight. So like no one said, hey, maybe you should take into consideration your health. No one said, hang on a minute, like no one tried to dig deeper?
Well, my husband did, but of course, like, you know, he's like, you know, he'll love me no matter what. But it was, what's up?
It's a rock and a hard place as well. Like if he understands, obviously eating makes you happy, or he wants what's in your best interest for this. Like he's going to do whatever you believe in the best interest of your happiness. He's going to be in support of that. So it's catch-22 because obviously if he says, all right, you can't do that, well then that's your coping mechanism gone. So it's probably going to result in you being, for at least a little while until you look for an alternative, more unhappy than you would otherwise be. And if you're not already happy, it's going to be a very hard thing for him to do. Very hard thing to do. That's a really tough spot to find yourself in.
Yeah. Especially because I was at home, like he was the one working. I was at home with 2 kids, you know, doing all the house stuff, and I would just eat, you know, because I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't, you know, go out and train when I wanted to train. And yeah, it was just getting to the point where my happiness was going to the fridge.
Yeah, right. So was that so it wasn't even, you would eat even when you weren't necessarily sad about something. You were doing it because you were bored and you felt like, all right, like this is as good as it's going to get. Like this is how I'm going to enjoy myself, given obviously my responsibilities and obviously what I'm otherwise able to do. Like that, you sort of weighted up in that sense. So you would eat. Yeah, right. How interesting. You would eat to occupy your time and eat whilst you're sad. Yeah. That is not a great circumstance to find yourself in. That's tricky.
Well, I actually didn't really hold much value of myself because I was like, you know what, this is as good as my life is going to get. And
right. That's a really sad realization to come to, though. Like to actually convince yourself that is the case. That is not healthy. That is not healthy. Not in anyone's best interest to be of the understanding, right, this is as good as it's going to get, especially if you're not happy.
Yeah.
Did you try, what else did you try out of curiosity? Like you recognized that you weren't happy. You recognized what was going to make you a little happier, and that's obviously eating. But did you actually try anything else?
Yeah. I did a few other things. Like I tried to go to like classes. I did TAFE. Tried to do something that didn't revolve around food.
And that wasn't for, so was that with the ambition to lose weight, or was that with the ambition to derive happiness from something else?
Yeah, to distract myself.
Yeah, right. So it wasn't even the weight at that point in time that you were more or less like, it wasn't your priority. Losing weight wasn't your priority. You were just trying to occupy your time and derive happiness through something else. Yeah, right. So you understood that was your go-to. And you were of the understanding the whole time that food, as I said, you weren't eating because you were hungry, you were eating because you were unhappy. Okay, how interesting. But there was nothing, did you find, regarding those things that you tried, what was the reason you stopped doing that? Was it because you didn't like it, or because it wasn't really viable, like, given your schedule? Was it just an inconvenience?
No, it didn't create happiness like food created for me.
Wow, how interesting. Yeah. How interesting.
Yeah.
Nothing compared in that sense.
No. And so that's why, you know, I spent over 12 months researching getting the gastric sleeve done. And I thought, you know, I've done Jenny Craig, I've done Weight Watchers, I've done the shake diet, I've done everything you can imagine.
Well, it wasn't any food that made you happy, right? It was the foods that, like the food, as you said, the foods you typically shouldn't eat because of obviously the sugar spike that's going to result in, like the blood sugar spike that's going to result in, obviously the secretion of serotonin that then results in. That's why you enjoyed those particular foods. It wasn't because you were hungry. So those diets, like the Jenny Craig, as you made mention of, that they typically don't allow that sort of eating.
No.
So, like, do you think they were detrimental? Like, trying those things, those short-term fixes, effectively what they are. Again, like, was that still with the ambition to? Were you trying at that point in time to drive fulfillment through weight loss and like proving to yourself that you could? Was your priority to lose weight, or was your priority to more or less prove to yourself you could do it? Do you know what I mean? Like,
so at that point it was to lose weight. because I'd had enough.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And you were willing to sacrifice at that point in time whatever made you happy for the sake of your health. That was pretty much like the choice. Yeah. See, that's a dangerous thing as well, because anything that doesn't make you happy comparatively, it's not going to be something you can sustain, because the entire time you're going to be thinking, hang on a minute, I'm doing this, I'm working really hard, and I'm not as happy as I was. It's not sustainable. It's not a long-term solution. Definitely not. And those programs like Jenny Craig, for instance, they typically don't allow you to eat the foods that you obviously derived enjoyment from. That's a red flag. That's just not sustainable for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I was miserable.
Were you not only miserable, but were you struggle? That's because you were miserable. Do you think that's why you struggled sticking to those diets? And then obviously, did that adversely affect, again, like your sense of self-worth and your confidence, given that you struggled to stick to those diets and a lot of other people had success with it? Like, did you look at some of the, like, obviously Jenny Craig are great. They're great at more or less like, they're great at creating awareness regarding how many have actually had success using those programs. So they throw it in your face to a degree, and it's their ambition is to inspire. But if you're someone that's actually struggling to stick to that program, were you looking at those before and afters and going, oh man, like why can't I do this? It's obviously my fault. And you were blaming yourself, and it's going to make you more unhappy. And that resulted in you being less inclined to stick to the diet, knowing that food was actually making you happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand.
And that's what I thought too, because all the meals were prepared for me, and I was like, why can't I stick to this? Like, what is wrong with me? And
nothing. Your preferences are different from everyone else's. Nothing necessarily. You just don't enjoy. Like the method just wasn't suited to you. But obviously, if you aren't of that understanding, you haven't really until you recognize that it's not a one size fits all. Like one size fits all is not a sustainable approach. Like that's will it work short term? So like anyone can stick to a diet, no matter what it's comprised of. Like you are really, like, in the scheme of things, you are pretty strong willed. You are.
Yeah.
Because like Jenny Craig, even though you were miserable, how long did you actually last doing that? You would have stuck it out for a little while.
Yeah, about 8 weeks or so.
I know you. Yeah, 100%. So like over the space of 8 weeks, how many times do you think you actually slipped up? If you were absolutely honest.
Oh, every 3 or 4 days.
But that's still considering though, because you got to weigh it up. So like 3 or 4 days, but you were like you said it, you were miserable. So 3 or 4 days is a fairly long time to actually go, provided you are miserable.
Yeah.
Like that's not like, oh, I didn't like it very much. Miserable is a strong word. There's a lot of like that has a strong meaning. It really does.
Mm.
So it's.
But you know what I did? I just drank a shit ton of Coke Zero.
Was that during the 3 or 4 days? That was your vice. Yeah, right. Interesting. Yeah, probably not the best thing to do. Like we're talking when you say when you say a shit ton, you're talking like upwards of what?
2 liters plus a day.
They're literally getting your intake from. Yeah. So you would have pretty much had that as a sole source of water effect. Like that's what you were using to hydrate yourself. You wouldn't have actually had any water. Yeah, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
Like it's. Yeah, is it going to adversely affect your health? Yes. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it going to necessarily adversely affect your weight? Well, Coke Zero. There are worse things you could drink. You could drink full sugar Coke. That would be worse. You would have gained a lot more weight doing that. But definitely worse things. But as you just said, like you were miserable and you still stuck to it 3 or 4 days. As far as I'm concerned, like you should be proud of yourself. But obviously, at that point in time, you weren't taking that into consideration. You hadn't yet worked out. There's a correlation between how much you enjoy doing something and how easy it is to actually do. And how likely you are to do that for an extended period of time. You hadn't actually worked that out. And unfortunately, these sort of programs, they don't teach that. They don't teach. All they do is make apparent that program has worked for so many other people in a similar starting circumstance to you.
Yeah.
But what they don't actually do, and what I really wish a lot of fads, a lot of very successful businesses within the fitness industry did, was also talk of the people that didn't actually have success with their program. It would benefit those that, again, like that would have benefited you. Like when you were following Jenny Craig's diet, you were of the Jenny Craig approach. Sorry, you were of the understanding. All right, this works for everyone. Look at all these success stories. This obviously works for everyone, because you never hear of it not working, right? Because they deliberately do not talk of that. But it would have benefited you. You wouldn't have what you were doing. Like it's when you slipped up. Did you, as I said, did you then beat yourself up for slipping up, and then did you then? Yeah. Probably slip up to a greater degree than you otherwise would have because you were so unhappy? Like you ate more than Like you ate, felt guilty, and then ate more to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, that's what I did all the time. I used to binge eat, like,
Rated,
to make up for it. Like, it was horrible. Oh,
I feel like this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, every day, like, I'd be strict because I used to work out as well. Even at 118 kilos, I used to train still.
Wow.
But I used to be strict all day, and then at nighttime, every night, I'd just blow out.
You weren't even thinking, like, to train every day at 118 kilo, that's obviously harder than training at 65. Like, that is a feat in itself. So to get yourself to the gym, to again, because obviously at that weight, you're self-conscious, you're looking over your shoulder to see if anyone's watching you. That in itself, that's a huge accomplishment. So a lot of people at 118 that wouldn't dare work out and set foot in the gym because they're afraid of being judged. So straight up, you weren't thinking about that though. Like when you're in that circumstance, all you're thinking about is what you could do better. And all you're thinking about is, again, like it's how far away from your goals you are, as opposed to, hang on a minute, I should probably pat myself on the back because I'm actually getting to the gym despite my weight. Like there are tons of things in that circumstance, just getting to the gym, just going to the gym, you should be very proud. Because a lot of people that wouldn't at that weight, given obviously how insecure people typically become when they've gained excessive amounts of weight. So again, like I'm proud of you, but you obviously wouldn't realize that. But you wouldn't have realized that at that point in time.
No, I didn't. And I used to go and sit in the car park and just wait. And I'll be like, oh, can I do this? Can I do it? Yep, all right. And I'd go in and try and just smash it out as quick as I could and then get out.
That's willpower though. Like again, there's a lot of people that will sit in their car, try and pep themselves up and simply won't be able to because again, like they're afraid of judgment. They've, as I said, at that weight, confidence is typically a huge, huge issue. There are so many people that are afraid of going to the gym because of their weight, because they don't want to be judged. But really, when you actually think about it, given that being at that weight adversely affects your health to the degree it does, they are the people that should be there the most. They are the people that should be congratulated for being there because the reality is like they are the most entitled to using that gym as far as I'm concerned, because at the end of the day, if I don't train for 3 weeks, I'm not adversely affecting my health. Like that's the reality. Like obviously I'm not encouraging improvements regarding my health, but I'm not at the point that things could go very wrong very quickly health wise. But at 118 at 5'4", that's exactly where you are. You're a time bomb is basically what you are. So you should be there. You have a more viable reason as far as I'm concerned than anyone does to actually be there.
Yeah.
It's really it's sad that people. It's so sad. It breaks my heart to hear that. It really does. It really breaks my heart. But so 118 couldn't stick to the Jenny Craig diet. You were beating. So not only because you were already pretty depressed, you were already pretty sad. So you were sad regarding the way you looked, and then obviously like that was compounded, given that you were also sad because you felt like you were failing yourself by not being able to stick to a program that has proven viable for so many other people. So do you feel like when you were actually sticking to those diets, you were more unhappy than when you weren't necessarily trying?
Yeah, and because I couldn't be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's when I'd be like, well, obviously there's no point because I can't stick to this 100%. It's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't a good mind frame to be in.
No, because as I said, it compounds. So you're not only upset with yourself, given what you've let yourself become, but now you are convincing yourself that you're beyond help because you simply couldn't stick to that diet. But again, like the factor really was how much you enjoyed the diet and obviously how accommodative it was. So your concern at that point in time, the reality is if you had have seen the scale drop, no matter how much it actually dropped, you would have been gratified by that, right?
Yeah.
Because Jenny Craig diets, they're typically super low in calories. So like they're really hard for anyone to stick to, like let alone someone that's 118 kilo. That's the reality of the situation. So obviously they're shooting for big transformations. They want you to drop 50 kilo in the space of 20 weeks, which isn't always healthy, but is it great for marketing? 100%. But in that circumstance, would you have rather seen the scale drop by say 100, 200 grams instead of not at all, or in fact go up? Like, do you think you would have been gratified by that? Just 100, 200 grams? That would have done it for you?
No. I wanted to lose.
Yeah, of course. But it comes down
to lose every kilo every time.
Well, that comes down to realistic expectations as well. And this is where a lot of those programs, I feel like being transparent in that sense would be far more viable. So if someone had sat down and said, look, here's what you need to do, because this isn't discussed, but here's what, if you want to lose that weight, Here is what you need to do. This is what you need to sacrifice. If you're not able to do that, this is likely what's going to happen. You're going to end up binge eating as you were. So let's take into consideration what you actually want to eat and what you're probably going to be able to do. And then obviously if that is factored in and you're only then going to lose, say, 300 grams a week for the sake of conversation, you wouldn't have beaten yourself up to the same degree because your expectation would be realistic. You go, all right, like I'm only losing this because I don't want to give up that, but those make me happy. So I feel like this is a better approach long term.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but unfortunately, those places, they do not, it's not just Jenny Craig, certainly not. And they are very good at what they do given their ambitions. But again, there are so many online programs. There are so many very successful coaches, very reputable individuals that sell programs that fail to create awareness regarding, again, like what isn't realistic should you have issues with compliance. And you'll find that the clients that need the most, the individuals that need the most help, the individuals that are in the darkest of places, what it ends up like, they're already unhappy regarding the way they look. If they can't stick to that diet and you're throwing in their face day to day that so many other people are experiencing success with it, it only makes them more sad, more miserable, and it only exacerbates the problems they were trying to overcome. That's literally what happened. It actually breaks my heart.
Yep.
Do you think your depression was worse whilst trying to stick to something that's like, because obviously you were pushing uphill is what you were doing. Do you think your depression was worse at 118 when you were actually trying to diet?
Yep.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
So the gastric sleep, so that came, you resorted to that after you tried several different diets. That was okay. And what was the ambition behind that? Because you obviously recognize food as an issue. Were you just trying to, without necessarily taking food away from yourself? Because obviously you were still, at that point in time, you were still unhappy. So you still wanted to eat. You just knew limiting the amount you could potentially eat was in the best interest of your health and perhaps your happiness. That was the realization you came to?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And that was all I did because I thought, you know what, if I can maybe lose weight, I'm going to be happier, healthier. And I looked at it like that.
It was a kickstart is basically what it does. It limits the amount of food you can actually eat. So you didn't actually change at that point in time. Had you given up trying to change your habits? Is that what you'd actually done? Yeah. Okay. So you just thought, all right, so I'm not going to be able to, I can't actually give these foods up because I'm unhappy. So you never really, see this is where, and this is a bit of a tangent I'm about to go on, but like it's obviously weight was a factor, but weight wasn't the only factor because you were unhappy before you gained all that weight.
Yeah.
So have you actually addressed that? And have you found the origin of that issue? Like there's obviously something, there was something that you would, as I said, upset regarding, and food was your coping mechanism. And then food eventually became something, food became the thing you were most, like your weight, became the thing you were most upset regarding, given obviously what you did to deal with the problem initially. But food wasn't the problem initially. Do you know what I mean? So like obviously when you were sort of bashed, as you said, like that was a trigger is basically what that was. But there was something, you were unhappy at that point in time. Food was what you did to deal with your unhappiness. Have you since losing weight, have you actually revisited that out of curiosity? Or have you at least an understanding as to what was making you unhappy to begin with and what resulted in that depression to begin with? Yo, Beck, welcome back to the party.
Oh, thanks. I don't know what happened.
No, I was on such a roll there, Beck. What'd you hear? Could you hear me?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
No, it just cut out.
Oh, that was such an in-depth thing. All right. So basically, food was your coping mechanism, right? Like that's.
Yeah.
So what your weight became the thing that you were most upset regarding, because you used food as a coping mechanism. But food and your weight, that wasn't the reason you were upset to begin with, right? So did you ever revisit that out of curiosity, like perhaps after you actually lost some weight, or perhaps even throughout the process as you were losing weight? Did you revisit the reason as to why you resorted to food to begin with and why you were depressed to begin with? Or is that still something that's unresolved? Because I feel like, as I said, food wasn't the issue to begin with. Food and your weight became the issue because you were dealing with something else. But have you actually dealt with that?
No.
No, you haven't.
No. So I've been to a few like counselors, psychologists, everything.
The whole process would have been easier.
They
you actually dealt with that as well. There's got to be something there. We're going to have to dig deep regarding that. Probably we might have to we'll schedule another call, definitely. But that's interesting because that's
cutting out again.
Is it the internet connection?
Yeah, I think so.
Must be. I can
Oh
hear you
man,
loud and clear.
it
Goes to,
keeps cutting your mic out.
how is it now?
Yeah, it's good at the moment.
There we go. It could just be the internet, not to be stressed regarding, but I feel like the entire process could have very well been easier for you, provided you're of the understanding that as to what was actually causing that depression to begin with. 100%. Like that, because again, like you were not only eating because you were unhappy because of your weight, but because you didn't actually, like you were probably eating at some instances as you were gaining weight because of, again, like whatever it was that was resulting in that depression to begin with. Like there is a trigger because that obviously
Yeah.
you getting beat up, that triggered you eating to, again, like deal with something. And then eventually, obviously the weight you gained, that became a problem. And then that became a priority. And that became what you were most upset regarding, which was obviously your weight. But the reality is, even now, given that there was something that triggered you to begin with, you haven't actually revisited that. That's probably still causing issues. That's probably still resulting in, and it could be to do with self-worth. It could be to do with, like, there are so many things that could be potentially to do with. But that's, I feel like, even now, that's probably one of the reasons as to why you still struggle to the degree you do. I feel like it's 100% a factor. But again, like back to gastric sleeve, back to like, well, that's a can of worms. What that is, babe. We'll get to that. Don't worry. Well, the gastric sleeve. So that's, again, you had that because you sort of had given up trying to diet more or less, and you were more or less just trying to restrict what you were, like the amount you were eating day to day, because you understood that was likely to result in weight loss.
Yeah.
Got you. And you lost, how much weight did you lose resulting to the gastric sleeve?
So 52 kilos all up.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
And that didn't actually change your habit while doing that. So you were still, or did you find because you had that, you were less inclined to eat? Were you being more conscious at least? Like how did that actually affect you?
Yeah. So what I did was when I got the sleeve, I looked at it like, this is my second chance at life. Like I need to nail this.
You sort of like accountable to the sleeve to a degree? Like did that feel like, all right, like even if my willpower fails, I've got this is like a backup to a degree.
This is my backup.
Like a fail safe. Yeah, I understand. That's okay. That's cool. I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you still
it was hard for everybody to kind of, especially my family, they didn't really understand. They were like, why can't you just eat healthy and exercise? Well, at that time, I was doing CrossFit 6 days a week. I would be eating healthily all through the day, but like I said, at night, I was there and I was eating everything that I could eat, Yeah.
I wonder, see, again, like you're now gratified to a greater degree than you have been to exercise and obviously to eat healthily. And it's because you've got something to lose now as well. I wonder if you eat when you feel like you're being pressured or you're under pressure. I wonder if like you don't deal with pressure all that well. And that's partly the reason as to why like you turn to food. And I feel like, I wonder if because of the sleeve, you were less inclined to eat regardless because you felt like, all right, like no matter the pressure on me, I can't do the damage I would otherwise do. Do you know what I mean? As I said, it's an actual fail safe in that sense. So even if I feel like no matter how overwhelmed I become and no matter how much I do eat, I'm still not going to be able to stomach the amount of food that I once have been able to, and it's still a step forward in that sense. It's an inevitable step forward comparatively, a forced step forward comparatively. I wonder if did you feel when you actually had that sleeve, did you feel like you were more in control?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Interesting's that. Okay. Well, do you think again, like dating back, do you feel like obviously getting bashed to the degree you did you feel helpless in that circumstance? Do you feel like you didn't actually have control? And do you feel like every time that anything happens in your life that you have not absolute control over, that's the food is the first thing you turn to? Like, is that something that's actually, true. Is that something that's actually been discussed? So do you feel like that's like, are you someone that yet to be of the understanding that there will always be things you can't control and you have trouble accepting that, especially if it's a relation to the others? Because like some of the
I like to be in control.
Yeah. See, but have you actually accepted there are always going to be things you can't control? Or instead of accepting that, do you then turn to food to distract you perhaps? Like
maybe.
If you were to actually think back, and obviously like from that point in time, every instance that you can recall, obviously 15, like when you were 15, it's obviously a long time ago, but do you think every instance that you've actually really binged that you can remember, was that because you felt like helpless in that circumstance? And was that because you felt like you perhaps, because it's probably the reason as to why you took interest in martial arts as well, so you wouldn't actually feel the way you did in that circumstance again. So you've taken action to ensure that, provided you're ever in, provided you're confronted in a physical sense ever again, you can protect yourself and you can defend yourself. So like, have you ever, like preceding that point, has there ever been a point in time that you felt not in control in some sort of confrontation that you knew you could hold yourself regarding? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you ever binged, preceding that point in time, have you ever binged because you felt like, again, like you were potentially going to be harmed physically, you felt like you couldn't control that? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you ever binged because you felt like you're potentially going to get hurt by someone else physically?
Yeah.
Well, you have?
Yeah.
Even since that? How interesting. Because I that would have been the unlock. Like, if you, given that you've done the martial arts you have, again, like if the answer to that question had been, all right, like now that I'm prepared for that, now that I've taken the steps necessary to ensure I can defend myself at all times, that's not like, is that something you worry about though? Like when you first got bashed, was that, were you very much worried about it happening again for an extended period of time?
Yep. For years.
You're not anymore, right?
No.
Because you took the steps necessary to obviously ensure you were prepared, provided that would happen again.
Yeah.
How interesting. Yeah. How interesting.
And you know what, like,
you know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
but truth be told, that wasn't actually the ambition. The ambition for this call was obviously to again, like talk of your struggles and hope people can relate. And obviously, like it's be of the understanding. All right, she's done it. She's still struggling now, but she's definitely in a better circumstance than she was. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. And obviously, what works for her is different to what might work for me. And she tried a lot of things, and they didn't work. And again, like it's not to. The ambition was to more or less have people of the understanding it's never worth giving up, and there is always hope, given what you've overcome, given where you are right now. That was the ambition. But now I really feel like, and this is obviously given I'm now working with you, it's going to benefit me helping you realize the potential origin of the issue. Because as I said, like initially you were eating to deal with something else. Food wasn't the issue. Food was the coping mechanism. Food and your weight became the issue because of how often you used it as a coping mechanism. That's been your priority for the last. You've then associated your unhappiness with food, but the reality is, I don't feel like you're now. I don't feel like every instance that you eat, you're unhappy because of the way you look. I feel like there is still, because it hasn't been addressed, there is still that same trigger. And given the context I have, and given some of the things you've messaged me regarding, like just in your check-ins, and given that you've made it apparent on several occasions, like this has happened, and it's never of relation to you. It's always of relation to other people. So it's always like, oh, so-and-so's, if it's that conversation, like, oh, so-and-so's passed away, or like I'm under pressure from this person, I'm under pressure from that person. It's always to do with external factors. And they are the instances you actually binge. You never actually binge when it's a problem that you can resolve. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have actually.
In your power, you never actually binge. If it's something you can't actually control, that's when you eat. As far as your check-ins go, that's when you actually eat.
Yep.
How interesting.
And it sucks because I've always let outside influence sabotage me, and I just like snowball and implode.
What actually, when you are worried about, like if there's that conversation, what are you actually worried about when there's something going on that is not really in your control? What is it? Are you feeling guilty because you can't help? Is that
Yeah, I can't fix it. And because I need to be in control and I can't fix things, it like breaks my heart, and then I just eat to cope with it.
That's your coping mechanism. How interesting. But out of curiosity, have you ever expected anyone, like when you were eating, right? And like obviously when you were 118 kilo, did you ever expect anyone to feel sad for you or feel guilty for you?
No.
Like, were you, so why do you expect that? Why are you holding yourself to that standard? Because that's actually what you do. When someone else is, like obviously you were doing it really tough at that point, but you didn't blame anyone else for your problems, did you?
No.
Right.
No.
And so again, like when you were at your worst, when you were struggling the most, there was never a point that you there was never a point you expected anyone else to be able to help you in that sense, right?
No.
So again, like let's break that down for a second. So do you feel like people that are doing it tough, people that are in pretty tough circumstances that are related to you to it, like of some relation to you to a degree, do you feel like they are expecting you to help and you feel guilty because you can't?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, then again, like it's take obviously the way you were feeling when you were at your worst in consideration. You're in a dark place. You're in a really bad place. You still never expected anyone else to help. So is it you telling yourself that you should be able to help, or is it them actually expecting you to help? I feel like I feel like it's actually you putting pressure on yourself to be able to help, even though there's nothing you can do. I feel like that's what you're actually doing, which is that's an unrealistic expectation to have, and it's because you're a people pleaser. But what you actually need to do is you need to come to a realization. Hang on a minute, this isn't in my power, and second, they don't actually expect me to help in this circumstance because it's you that's telling yourself they expect you to help. If you can help, fantastic, and I'm sure they're going to be grateful. But if you can't help in any way, shape, or form, again, like first and foremost, like if you can't help in any way, shape, or form, that's damn unfortunate, but it's definitely not your fault that you can't help. Number two, they're probably not expecting you to help. So like what you actually need to do next time you are extremely stressed regarding, like this is what I recommend, and this is the realization you need to come to. You need to actually reach out to that person and say, all right, what can I do to help? And no one's going to tell you what you can do, provided no one's going to ask for something from you if they understand that you can't actually help. Do you know what I mean? So you're wishing you could actually solve the problem, but the reality is they're probably of the understanding no one can actually help but them, right? But there might be something you can actually do that gratifies you. And they're not going to, no one ever asks for help for someone that they know can't help. Do you know what I mean? It makes no point. That's like me saying, hey, Beck, can you come over here and help me write diets? There's no point me asking that because at the end of the day, like it's not something you're going to be able to help me do. But there are probably, but if I were to say, look, Beck, I want to write a song. Can you help me? Because you can obviously sing. You're the person I'm actually going to ask, and you're going to be able to do that. And you're going to feel empowered and gratified, given that you have helped in some way. But when you're feeling, when someone's going through hardship, when someone's doing it really tough, and you're holding it against yourself that you can't actually help, have you actually asked them at any instance, hey, what can I actually do to help? And given them the opportunity to tell you based on what they know about you and what you could potentially help with?
No,
that's what you need to do. That's 100% what you need to do. That's going to change the game back. I think we've just, that wasn't the intention regarding this call, but I feel like that's going to change because you're literally holding against yourself, oh, I can't help. But reality is you potentially could. You haven't asked what they need help with. Like you haven't asked if there's anything else they need help regarding. You were stressed. You're holding against yourself. You're not being able to help. Like if someone's passed away for the same conversation and everyone's sad, you're holding against yourself that you can't bring that person back. That's what you're holding against yourself. No one can, and no one expects you to do that. But again, like it's if your ambition is to ease everyone's sadness, well then ask the people you're concerned regarding what you can actually do to help. And they're going to say, like they're going to take into consideration what you could actually do. And they're going to, as I said, ask that of you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a realistic expectation. They're not going to say, hey, Beck, I want you to bring so-and-so back because it's not possible. And they understand that. But you are convincing yourself that they expect more of you than you're capable of. But no one actually does. No one actually does that. It's you that's convincing yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
Because as I said, all I've noticed with your check-ins, every time you've binged, it's to do with it's never to do with this. Like it's now because you are in control and you understand what you need to do to lose the weight. You understand what you need to eat. It's never you. It's always to do with something someone else has done that's resulted in you feeling the way you are. 100%. I feel like you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself to be the savior, be everyone's savior all the time. And it's not a realistic expectation. And you're of the understanding they're expecting that of you as well, but chances are they're probably not. Like that's, I can almost guarantee they're probably not. Because what you're actually doing, you're stressing you're assuming is what you're doing. You're assuming, you're speculating. And that's not real. That results in no context. If you want to actually know if you can help, ask. And I feel like as soon as you actually ask, and if that person, because you're straight, I can't help. I feel crap because I can't help. I'm going to eat because I feel crap. Instead, you're like, all right, I can't help with that. I wonder if there's something that I can actually help regarding. And by you asking as I said, they're going to tell you, and you're not going to feel helpless. You're not going to feel powerless. You are going to be able to help to some degree, and you're going to be able to, you're going to then have a realistic understanding as to what they actually expect from you. Now you've given them an opportunity to. But I promise you, it's not going to be what you're expecting of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And it's my biggest thing that I try and just take over. And I'm like, all right, let me do this, this, and this. And it's not up to me to do it. But I just try and take pressure off everyone else. And then at the end of the night, I can't sleep.
But it doesn't, see, that's not a viable way to deal with things. Because, like it's you will stick your hand up at any opportunity. Yeah. But the reality is, what's the point of sticking your hand up if someone doesn't need your help regarding that? The more efficient way to go about things is to actually ask before you just do it and assume responsibility. Because you're stressed because you assume a ton of responsibility and you end up overwhelmed. But there's no point helping and taking control of the situation when there are things that are going fantastic. Like it's what you are most useful regarding, providing your ambitions to help someone else, is what they believe you can help them the most regarding. Yeah. And they have the answer to that, not you. So you've just gone, yep, I'm back. Let me do everything. I'll do everything. But the reality is 99% of things might be fine that you think aren't. There is probably one thing that they could use help with. But and that one thing's probably not going to overwhelm you. But instead what you've done is gone, I'll do everything, and completely just, as I said, overwhelmed yourself. And you eat because you're overwhelmed, and you eat because you put a ton of pressure on yourself that wasn't necessary.
Mm-hmm. And that's every single week.
100%. And I feel like it dates back to, obviously, you at one stage in your life feeling helpless to a degree because you were beaten up. And then from there, you've gone, I never want to feel that way again. And I never want anyone else to feel that way again. So what I'm going to do is if I feel like someone is actually feeling that way, I'm going to step in, I'm going to take control, and I'm going to sort their problems out for them.
Yep. How many months I've been going to a psychologist, and they've never and I've never got this from that. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Well, that wasn't actually. So we'll have another chat regarding that, but that wasn't actually the plan. I just feel like that could very well be the origin of the issue. I really do. I feel because it's given the context I have, and that's fitness orientated. Weight wasn't your issue to begin with. It really wasn't. Weight wasn't your issue.
No.
Weight became.
And I think because back when it happened, I didn't get that chance to fight back. Like I was a victim. 100%. And I'm like, I'm never going to be a victim again. I'm never going to let anybody be a victim.
100%. That's the issue. That's the issue.
Yep.
You are assuming that they need help with things that they probably don't. And as I said, what you're doing is you're carrying more weight than you need to. So they might be, for the sake of conversation, let's say that in terms of fitness, right? They might be fantastic. Like they might be great at carrying a 20 kilo weight vest, right? But 30 is a little too heavy. So all they need help with is that 10 kilo. And you can easily carry that 10 kilo. But instead what you're doing, you're saying, all right, give me the weight vest and you get on my back as well. And I'll carry it.
Yes.
That's literally what you're doing.
Yes.
And you're overwhelmed. You put a ton of pressure on yourself and you eat because you understand eating makes you happy, or at least less sad, less pressured. It's your escape. Is what it is. 100%. But you haven't actually asked them. So you're assuming they need help with all of these things and creating a workload that's triple what it should be for you, resulting in stress and pressure. When the reality is what they probably need help with isn't going to stress you out to that degree, and it's not going to result in you eating. But you haven't asked. You've just assumed and just taken responsibility because you don't want anyone feeling the way that you have. But as I said, no one's actually going to ask of you things that you can't do. So you'll assume responsibility and say, I'll do it, even though you know you can't actually do it. And then you feel guilty for potentially letting people down. I can see what's actually happening here.
And I work myself to the bone, so nobody's disappointed.
100%, because at the moment, you're not eating anymore because you hate the way you look. Because you look comparatively, what you've accomplished is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal is what you've accomplished. You know that. Like you said it, you've lost 50 kilo. That is so damn impressive. Yeah. So damn impressive. Well done. So it's not like obviously at 118, that was a coping mechanism. You're eating because you were like, oh man, like this is unacceptable. Like that was an escape at 118. But now you're obviously really proud of what you've accomplished comparatively, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So that's not the reason. You're not eating because you're unhappy anymore.
No.
Not to the same degree, at least. So there will be some instances that you look in the mirror and you go, oh, like I'm not stoked with that. But given the point of reference you have, you've accomplished a ton comparatively. But what you never actually did, which is still resulting in you eating which is still resulting in you binge eating, is you never actually dealt with the original reason you were binge eating.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You're actually, you have more control than you think. And the problem can be resolved when you're feeling stressed. The problem can be resolved by simply asking those that are doing it tough that you feel somewhat responsible for, or as I said, like it's when trying to be everyone's savior, it's probably first best asking, hey, what do you actually need help regarding? Instead of just throwing yourself in the deep end and, as I said, like holding them above water, but you drowning, because that's literally what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like I made a habit of, just really trying to help everybody. And at that point, like my body shut down because I was that stressed about trying to help everyone, and I was drowning.
100%. I could not agree more. Not agree more.
Yeah. And then I binge eat, and then the next day I look in the mirror and go, oh, I got all this loose skin. What is the point of me even doing this?
Yep.
And then I'll be on another snowball.
So that's the second. So the second instance you eat, like that's because you are regretful of the work you brought undone. But the first reason you eat, no one just like that first meal, that first day, that's not because you're unhappy regarding the way you look. How often lately have you looked in the mirror and that's been the only reason you've eaten? What's happened? Every time you've eaten, you've then looked in the mirror the following day and gone, damn it, I can't do this. It's not worth it. And then you've done that. But the reason you've done it to begin with, every time you stray from your diet to begin with, every time you, as I said, like you have that relapse, the trigger initially is not because of the way you look. Like how many times throughout the day with no reason will you just go, stuff this, I'm going to eat, I hate the way I look? No, it doesn't happen. Because you've lost 50 kilos. You've killed it. You've killed it, Beck. Like what you've done, again, like to relate this back to fitness, what is your advice, having lost the 50 kilo you have and having been 118 kilograms, what is your advice to those that are at present in a similar circumstance to the circumstance you were in when you first started? When you first started trying to lose weight, what is your recommendation?
So just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And
you're allowed to make mistakes. Not everything's going to work.
Well, that's right. And you're not going to be perfect.
No. And you've lost 50 kilo and there's still days that you struggle. There are still days you have trouble sticking to your diet.
Yep. Like and then I usually, if I have a really bad week, I message you and then, all right, kick my ass. I've just put on 3 kilos this week and it happens. And then, and then all like this week I've had an awesome week, you just got to take the good with the bad and you can't beat yourself up constantly.
Basically consistency is more important than perfection. Far more important than perfection.
Yep. And I just learnt that, and it was only last week that I learnt that. So the last 3 years I've had the sleeve done, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be perfect every day. But no, last week I learnt there is no such thing. Thanks to your podcast.
That's great. Well, I'm certain, again, like I really do appreciate you being as honest as you have, like during this chat, because there's so many people that really do struggle with mental health, so many people that struggle with depression that are going to benefit from hearing that, like someone else is actually going through that. Like you are relatable in that sense. And that's, as I said, like, regarding Jenny Craig, I really wish there were big companies that broadcast some of the instances that their diets haven't actually worked for select individuals as it didn't for you. You know what I mean? Because it's going to result in people like you that thought that was going to be the solution. Themselves up to the degree that they do. Because that is exactly what I guarantee there are hundreds of thousands of people that have tried Jenny Craig and it didn't work for, that have just given up because they're of the understanding that it works for everyone. They haven't. And obviously at that point in time, like you're insecure, you're not confident. You don't want to admit that it didn't work for everyone because you're of the understanding you're of the understanding it works for everyone. So you don't want to.
Honestly, I thought 16 weeks, I'm going to be shredded.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going to on my way 16 weeks.
Now, when it didn't work, were you, especially at that point in time, were you inclined to talk to anyone about it not working? Do you know what I mean? Like, were you embarrassed that it didn't work for you?
Yeah, for sure. Because I thought, what have I done?
Literally, like at that point in time, you're beating yourself up because you think, all right, this works for everyone. It's not working for me. There's something wrong with me. And I obviously don't want to broadcast that to everyone. I'm not going to make it apparent. No one gets on social media and talks about, everyone talks about all their success stories. No one talks about the things they've struggled with, the things they have issues with. And it's a huge problem because then there's so many people that are of the understanding it's only them going through something, or it's only them that have experienced something. It's not the case. It is never the case, especially regarding health and fitness. Like all diets work. That goes without saying, but not all diets will work for you. The most important factor is that you actually enjoy it. That is the most important factor. That is.
Yeah, well, you've got to be able to stick to it.
Yes, if you can't stick to it, it's not going to be like no matter how strong-willed you are not going to be able to. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be able to stick to that long term. And if your ambition is to lose weight and keep it off, you need to stick to it long term. That's what needs to be understood.
Yeah. Right? Well, I actually went to a coach before I found you, and they gave me the chicken and broccoli diet. So I had to eat that 4 times a day, and I was like. He actually said to me, he's like, if you want to look, because I showed him a picture of Hattie, actually. And I was like, come on, Hattie, what do I do?
Hang on. So that's the reason Hattie looks like she does, is it because the chicken and rice is the
chicken and broccoli.
Because I have a little bit of context there. I know Hattie pretty well. And I definitely feel like her work ethic is a phenomenal factor. I feel like genetics are a phenomenal factor. There are a lot of factors that are of no relation to chicken and rice as to why Hattie looks that way. She is a weapon. A weapon.
Yeah, I know, and I was like, I so look up to her. Yeah,
she might even be offended. She might even be offended that coach thinks that she looks the way she does. Like that's not. Oh goodness me, it's kind of discrediting. But anyway, no, I'm sorry. I'm happy to be honest in that sense, Beck. I'm sorry, but the difference between you and Hattie is not chicken and broccoli.
Yeah, I know, and I was like, oh god damn it.
That's like saying, oh, you want to play like LeBron? You got to wear his shoes. No.
Yes.
Like so many other factors. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Like the reality is, and obviously you're of that understanding now, but you are going to look the best you ever have. That goes without saying. Yeah. But like Hattie, you have a different skeletal structure to Hattie. Hattie has a different skeletal structure to Asha. Asha has a different skeletal structure to Lauren. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone is built differently. I'm never going to look like Matt O'Reilly. That's what, like, no matter, I could do exactly what he does. I'm not going to look like Matt O'Reilly. I'm built differently. So the ambition should always be to look the best you can. And like, you can definitely use those physiques as like a reference point, but the expectation should never be to look like that, because it's never actually going to happen. Again, like an unrealistic expectation is going to result in disappointment. Because obviously you would.
Well, that's what I thought. In 8 weeks, I could look like Emily King, chicken and broccoli, Emily King. Here I come.
You stuck to that chicken and broccoli. And how long did it take you to work out, all right, maybe this isn't actually going to work?
Oh, I was on it for like 3 weeks, and I was dry reaching, trying to eat myself. I was like,
You actually stuck to it though.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Because I was like, this is what's going to work. And it did not work.
It works for some people. So some people can eat that. It didn't work for you because you didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's, as I said, it's a conversation that needs to be had so much more often, because it's going to result in, like, any progress is better than no progress. That's my understanding. That's my ambition.
And I think people get caught up with that. Like, they settle for those diets when they think, like me, this is the only thing that's going to work for me. You really need to find someone that's going to do it for you.
Try, or even without necessarily help, like someone's help, reach out is what I recommend. Like, reach out. Try things. So like, ask as many people as you can. Hey, what are you doing? Use what they're doing as a point of reference, but don't feel like you need to be 100% compliant to that protocol for it to work. That's what I'm saying. So if you want to have a different breakfast, have a different breakfast. If you want to have your carbs right before you go to bed, have your carbs before you go to bed. Like if you pay respect to, no matter what your diet actually looks like, if you pay respect to the principles that govern weight loss, and the biggest being obviously a deficit. So if you're eating less than you're expending, you are going to lose weight. If that is kept in mind and you're eating enough protein day to day, really that diet can look whatever way you want and you are going to lose weight. Is it going to be optimal? No, but what is optimal makes no difference if you can't stick to that. Optimal's only worth considering if you can be 100% compliant. And in the real world, it doesn't exist.
No.
It really
No,
does.
that's
It's
right.
always like it again, and this is where reach out the people you want to look like. Reach out to Lauren, reach out to Hattie, reach out to Asha. Ask them if they sometimes slip up. They do. They do.
Mm.
And it's going to put things in perspective for you. It's what's going to, they are more consistent than they are perfect. That's the way it works. And they have been. That's not like 8 weeks. No, like Emily, Hattie, they've been training for like 10 years.
Yeah.
They've
And
been
that's,
more
I actually
consistent.
did reach out to
Yeah.
Emily, and she said, you know, this is like 9-10 years worth of work.
And then she's been more consistent than she hasn't been. Do you know what I mean? Like she slips
Yeah.
up all the time. Trust me, I know Emily. She slips up, and
Yeah.
she has her own struggles as well. But she's more consistent than she is inconsistent, and that's the secret over an extended period of time.
Yeah. And that's what, like, people message me as well. Like, I've had strangers message me like, oh, how did you do it? And that, I said, it's not an overnight thing. You know, yes, I did have the sleeve done, and I'll never lie about it, because I just believe,
But
like,
it might
I'm a
not
straight
work.
up honest person.
Oh, 100%. But the sleeve might not, it worked for you, but it might not work for everyone, right? It might
That's
not actually
right.
work for everyone.
Yep. But the number one thing to remember is to be consistent, and you got to do what works for you.
At least time spent better understanding what works for you is not time wasted. That's where a lot of people go wrong as well. So they beat themselves up for, like, they've just started dieting, they've just started training. They're not really enjoying it, but they feel like, you know what, if I'm not losing weight straight away, it's a waste of time. No. What is a waste of time is sticking to something you know you can't stick to long term, because you are going to rebound. It's not a waste of time trying different things, testing different things, and finding what works for you. But a lot of people skip that step. They go straight to, all right, I want to lose as much weight as I can. Let's do this. They skip the step that involves, as I said, gaining some understanding as to what they could do to deem it something they could stick to long term. And that is a critical mistake that everyone makes. It's like, it's not, they're doing that is no different to picking a job without doing any work experience, and then just expecting yourself to do it for the rest of your life and be happy regarding that. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen.
No. And I think sometimes people get so obsessed with focusing on their weight, like I did. And I had to turn that around and think, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and get obsessed with focusing on my technique, or focusing on just getting to the gym every day. And I used that for my mental health. So, you know, it worked out better for me using it to keep my head clear. And then what happened after that was weight loss fell into place after that, you know, because my nutrition at home was right. So I just think, well, actually, when the COVID thing came out and I found out that I couldn't go to the gym, I had a complete meltdown.
You freaked out, 100%.
Yeah, freaked out.
And you binged, right? You binged?
I binged, and
let's think about this for a second. This is again going to bring back to the point I made earlier. You weren't binging because you hated the way you looked.
No.
You were binging because there was something you couldn't control. And then instead you put pressure on yourself to control that. And then you binged afterwards because you felt like you brought some work undone. You were disappointed in yourself.
And I thought, that's it. There goes all my hard work. Can't go to the gym.
Sent Chris a message and he slapped you in the face with reality is what he did.
Every time. So now, like, that's what I do. Every time I'm like, oh, can I do this? I'll just message you, and then you'll give me the reality. It's awesome.
I'm pretty good at. I'm pretty logical. I'm not very emotional. You are far more emotional than me. I feel like that's why I'm doing what I'm doing and you're doing what you're doing.
That's right.
There's not a lot of emotion. It's pretty like black, and everything's pretty black and white for me. It really is. But again, like that, it proves regarding the things that trigger you. That's the perfect example. That is literally the perfect example. Because was it just yourself you were worried about, or was it everyone else as well?
Oh, everyone.
You would literally. Well, that's what I mean. You were literally worrying about that. Did you at that point in time? Was one of your first thoughts? All right, like what can I do to potentially help other people? Could I buy equipment? Could I let them use that equipment?
I did. I was like, all right, who can I get around? Because I've got some dumbbells here. Like, I can train them.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's you've proven the point. We might have actually stumbled across something here, Beck. I think we might have actually uncovered something. But but that's the perfect example. And in that circumstance, the conversation I had with so many people in a very short space of time, I more or less could have just recorded me saying exactly what I did to you and just given it to everyone. But basically, in that circumstance, like, is it unfortunate that you can't train the way that you're accustomed to? Yes. But Like if your ambition is to lose weight, can you still lose weight training an alternate way? 100%. And the reality is, like, do you have to, and this is, do you have to enjoy it for it to be viable short term? Long term, yes, you 100% have to. But this is only short term. You don't have to do this for, we're not going to be in lockdown for the next 10 years. So if you can soldier on for the better part of 2 months of the understanding it's still better than doing nothing, fantastic. You're going to be okay. That's the conversation I pretty much had with everyone. Like, you can still progress. You're just not going to be able to do the things you're accustomed to that you like. But because it's not efficient, that's like saying, all right, if I can't run my car on premium fuel, then it's not even worth running. It's not the reality. You're still going to get from point A to B using 95 unleaded. It's just not going to be as efficient, but it's still worthwhile doing. If you need to get there, you need to get there regardless.
Yeah. Well, remember when we first met and I said, you know, I've got to train 6 days a week. I've got to do all this cardio and everything. You're like, no. You only need to do 4.
Wow.
Yeah. And you're like, stop. And I was like, no, but I need. And then when that announcement came out and then, you know, we only had to do at-home workouts, I was like, all right, so I've got to work out 6 days a week at home now. I've got to do all this stuff. And then you're like, no.
I say no a fair bit. I do say no a fair bit. all worked out well.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it wasn't just you. Again, like a lot of people, and it benefited you, me making apparent that everyone was struggling with that as well. It wasn't just you. Everyone was struggling with that.
Yeah.
And that's again, like the pretty much like to summarize today, what I wanted to make apparent was, again, like, chances are the things that you are struggling with, the things that you have struggled with, someone else has. Promise you that. Do not ever feel like, as Beck did, that like it's there is something that works for everyone, and if it doesn't work for you, there's something wrong with you. That is a huge issue, and that's a huge issue a lot of people struggle with. And these talks, Beck, again, thank you for your time, because it gives me the opportunity to make apparent to so many people, hey, like, you are not alone. I promise you, there are far more people than you realize that have, as I said, fallen short trying to lose weight the same way. And there is going to be a solution. What worked for Beck might not necessarily work for you, but something is going to work for you. Promise you that. Promise you that. So keep looking. And those that you want to look like, those you're putting on a pedestal, reach out and ask them, hey, like, do you ever slip up? Do you ever fall short of your expectations? And they're going to say yes. And it's going to put things in perspective for you. It's what it's going to do. You need to have to find yourself, to reduce the likelihood of you being disappointed, you need realistic expectations. And to have realistic expectations, you need to, as I said, ask the right questions and ask the right people.
And be motivated by yourself too. Yeah. The improvements you make, be motivated by that.
And don't forget to pat yourself on the back. Like, it's very easy to focus on the weight you haven't lost, but it's also, again, like, don't forget the weight you have lost to date and all the things you've already overcome. Because you did that. Like, you still do that. Beck's lost 50 kilo and she still beats herself up for not being where she wants to be, failing to realize that she's lost failing to remember sometimes that losing 50 kilo was incredible. You should be very proud of yourself. You should be very proud of yourself. Like, what you've accomplished is incredible, Beck. It really is. Should be very proud of yourself. But, and again, like, your take-home notes, next time you feel like you're powerless, next time you feel like you need to be someone's savior, ask them what you can actually do to help before assuming responsibility, and see what that changes. See what that changes.
Yeah, for sure.
Because every time you assume that responsibility, even if it's regarding things that you know you can't do, it's going to make you feel helpless again. And that's your trigger. Feeling helpless is your trigger. So stop putting yourself in a position when you don't need to, that you are feeling that way. Because that's what you're doing. You're literally putting yourself in that position, because you're putting your hand up saying, yep, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that. And everyone else relax. And you know very well there's a lot of things that you can't actually do. So you're literally putting yourself in that position. But if you were to say, hey, what can I help with? And they say, hey, do this. One, it's probably going to be a lot less than what you assume responsibility regarding. And two, they're only going to ask you something they know you can help with. Simple. And you're going to feel gratified. You're going to feel like you have helped. And that's obviously something you need. And as I said, you're not going to end up drowning, holding them above water, which is exactly what you're doing.
100%. Look at you go.
Good chat, Beck. Thank you for your time this morning. And if those I highly recommend, if you are someone that is looking to lose weight, if you are someone that needs to lose a fair amount of weight and you want to be inspired, follow Beck. Highly recommend it. Beck, what are your details? How would you like to be contacted? How can people follow you that are interested in potentially asking you some questions, reaching out to you, or again, just following you on your weight loss journey?
Yep. So if you head to the Limitless page, Chris actually posted my photo this morning.
I did. Was that strategic? 100% it was.
I knew it was.
Yeah. But it's Beck_Tats, right? That's how you Beck_Tats. Yep. If you want to follow Beck, she's on my page. As you can imagine, she's the heavily tattooed one named Beck. But if you are someone struggling with, as I said, mental health, if you are someone that is of the understanding that to lose weight, everything needs to be perfect, if you're someone that's of the understanding that nothing works for you, given that you've tried a few things and you're of the understanding you're the only one that those things don't work for, reach out to Beck. She will put things for you because she's been there, she's done that, she's lost 50 kilo, and she'll be the first to tell you, hang on a minute, like, there are things that aren't going to work for you. There are things that are. If you haven't found that thing yet, keep looking. And here's someone I recommend. And then ask, and you'll be the first to advise them to ask. Like, if you can't answer a question, you're going to point them in the right direction. Is what you're going to do. You're going to, Beck, as I highly recommend, if you want to be motivated, if you want to, as the be of the understanding that it is always worth trying, and it's never nothing is beyond your reach, provided you believe you can do it. Beck's the one to follow. Simple as that.
Yeah. Let's bring you out of the darkness into the light.
That's cool. I like that, Beck.
Yep.
You're a good egg. Don't ever change. Don't ever change.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for your time this morning, Beck. Again, I'm sorry I was late. That's entirely my fault, but
that's all good.
I really appreciate your time, and we're definitely going to have to do this again.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you, Beck.
Okay.
Staying up with the band.